Have you ever done a podcast like this?
No, I haven't. And
Really?
I haven't heard my voice. I'm hearing it like 0.2 seconds after I say it.
Yeah, isn't that weird, kind of?
I have to get a little used to that, but
Yeah.
I'll be okay.
It's like, yeah. Is it weird? Like, is it too weird?
No, it's not too weird.
Okay.
I'll adjust.
Okay. Yeah. You're a smart dude. Well, this is your first podcast ever. Oh.
Yes. I mean, I listen to podcasts, but I've never been on podcasts. So in my head, I've been in podcasts.
How
When
you
I'm hearing other people
Yeah.
do podcasts, I'm in my head talking to them. So now I'm just speaking up.
What's your go-to podcast?
I like any movies
yeah, you're
or
a movie
sports
buff.
podcasts.
Okay.
How did this, like, kind of spoof, funny comedy movie podcast? Like, how did this get made? Is
Oh, I like that.
one I like.
You're a movie buff?
Yeah.
What's your why? Like how? Why? How'd you get into movies? Do you remember the first movie that like got you into movies that said like I really like this?
I remember my first theater experience.
Ah.
Well, I don't know if it was my first, but it was my first memory I had of a theater experience. It was coming out of the Court Street Theater, and I watched Return of the Jedi like when it came out. And I'm not young, but I'm not old enough to have experienced the original Star Wars. So Return of the Jedi was my introduction and my theater introduction to Star Wars. So that was fun. And the Court Street Theater is, well, it's not reopened yet, but
Coming back, baby.
lately it's been a nice venue. I like going there.
Yeah, I hear the word on the street is here in 2026.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Yeah, the rumor mill. Thanks, Jordan, for doing that, Jordan Dice. So coming out of the Court Street Theater, you said like, I dig movies. What was it about that movie that said like I'm more than just like a Friday night every once in a while kind of movie guy?
Jabba the Hutt was pretty pretty cool monster villain. And
Yeah.
when I must have been like 6 or 7 when that came out. Luke Skywalker was a cool hero. Han and Leia. I mean, the whole thing. It's again, I hear people talking about the original Star Wars as their touchstone for why they got into theater movies, but for me it was Return of the Jedi because that was my age and my era.
It's kind of like the epicness of it. Like it's not just this moment in time in a New Jersey neighborhood, like that kind of ubiquity of it, but here's an entire universe that can go so many different and all the different storylines, and of course like you got the reluctant hero like becoming the hero, and like who doesn't love that?
That's right. And Darth Vader, he was a cool villain
Darth
too.
Vader,
but
man.
Jabba the Hutt, that was my guy.
See, I was never really into like the movie part of it. I was really into like the special effects of it. Like I wanted to be the guy sketching out the 30 versions of Jabba the Hutt and putting the rubber on, like making that kind of stuff. That I was really into. That I thought was dope.
Well, it's not too late.
Not
they're
too
still
late.
making them. I'm sure there's a way they'll bring Jabba back somehow.
Yeah. There's still time for a 7th career.
Yeah, exactly. Not too late.
Phil, just pick one thing and stick to it. Do you have a favorite movie? Like what's the movie that you could watch 20 times in a row and never get bored?
It's not that far from Return of the Jedi, but Aliens.
Oh, really?
Is my favorite movie.
I've never seen an alien movie.
None of them? Really?
None of them.
Wow. Like the first 2 are...
My parents thought it was too
considered-
scary growing up, and then I just never got into it.
Yeah, they're pretty scary. Yeah, if you're not into horror movies, Aliens is more of it's a horror movie, but it's also like a military movie. But again, this was a childhood experience. I always wonder if I had seen this for the first time when I was 30, would I still have the affinity that I have for it today? I don't know. But I didn't. I saw it when I was like 8 or 9.
What is it, like the chest buster or whatever?
Yeah, they have some of that in Aliens.
Comes out. Yeah.
They have some of that in Aliens,
Okay.
yeah.
Almost Famous for me is the movie.
That is a great movie.
There's something about that movie that every time I sit down and watch that thing, and like there's also like the journalist tinge to it, like writing stories, and just it is such a perfect movie. It's a
great movie.
It's so good. It's so good. You have that kind of combination between music and journalism and nostalgia, and it's just when they're on the bus singing Tiny Dancer, I just melt every single time. I am a golden god, standing on the roof, jumping in the pool.
It's a great movie. It's a great scene. my favorite journalism movie is that's up there. It's got to be top 3 probably, but number 1 is Zodiac. Have you ever seen Zodiac?
Yes.
Which is, yeah, that was, I mean, based on a lot of real life things that happened a long time ago, but Zodiac for me is my favorite.
Also an
journalism
interesting angle that it shows, like the function of journalism. Like like it's really easy to, especially now with social media and just kind of the relentless barrage of words and content and stuff. Like it really shows this angle that like journalism solves a real world serves a real world function. Like it can change things and it can solve things, and like this uncrackable thing that everybody's like scratching their head. Like you can figure it out if you dig in and you talk to people and you spend enough time doing it. Like you can change things, and I love that.
Yeah, and sometimes it can take years, and sometimes the answers don't come to you. Sometimes it's left a mystery, and sometimes that's a story worth telling, just the mystery of it all.
Fair. Yeah, that is true. Like there's not always an immediate answer, which is kind of the anti-social media age. Like I should know exactly what I need to know about everything that's happening everywhere all at once in 1/2 of a second or less. And you're talking about like you could spend years and still not know.
Yeah.
Interesting. Did you always want to be a journalist, or?
Yeah, I was fortunate that I kind of hooked onto it at a really young age. I mean, I always was a writer. Like I remember in the 2nd grade, I would try to hurry through my math assignment so I could write like little fictional stories. So
instead of the doodles on the back of the test, you were like, once upon a time, there was a boy named Justin.
Yeah, it was pretty close to that. And then this is an anecdote that might explain a lot of things about the origins of me as a journalist, but my first newspaper experience. So I went to Arthur Hill High School. My sophomore year, I took a journalism class because I figured, okay, I'm a writer. This is a class that probably shouldn't be too hard for me. I probably had algebra or something that semester, so I'm like, I need something that'll be a little easy, not realizing, okay, this is going to become my career one day. So I took a journalism class, and then the next year I joined the Arthur Hill News as a reporter. And the summer before my first issue, my cousin was dating the daughter of our principal at Arthur Hill at the time. And so I had this weird source into the life of my principal. And so at some point during that summer, my cousin's girlfriend must have told him that the principal was thinking about retiring. And then my cousin told my grandma, and then my grandma told me, and that was just kind of my first like rumor that I had to confirm whether it was a rumor or a fact. And I got it delivered to me from my grandma. My grandma was my first newspaper source. So my first issue, our first staff meeting comes up for our first issue, and I raise my hand. Hey, I got a story I can look into. You know, I hear our principal might be retiring, and so I dove into that story. He said no, he's not retiring. But when the story came out that we did end up writing a story basically saying no, I'm not retiring. I'm feeling good. I'm here to stay. My editor at the time, who was a senior, I was a junior at the time, but my editor at the time was a senior and came up to me and said, you know, this reads really well, this reads like a newspaper story, even though this is your first time writing one of these. And that was just really, really encouraging to me to hear that from a peer. Another side thing is his name is Andy Caloris. He went on to become our state rep in Saginaw here for a couple of years. So he was my first editor too. Oh, cool. So a couple of funny stories kind of coming together there for my first newspaper story. And the epilogue to the story is that the principal did end up eventually retiring the next year. So my source was good. He just denied it is all.
Sometimes the timing is wrong. Like you got one more year to go, and you don't want to quite go public yet because then things get messy. So
right.
Interesting when you're talking about like it was your first rumor. Like so and so talked to so and so, talked to so and so. Grandma talked to you.
Yep.
Like and that's really one of the really fascinating things about this work of telling these kinds of stories is just to see, yeah, it's a story and yeah, it's a subject, but to see how everyone and everything is connected. You know, like you talk to this person and they talk to this person, and then you go over here and then you learn things like, oh, wow, like I did not see that coming. And then it's almost like, what is that meme? Like a Beautiful Mind with all the algebra and all the math equations going around. And that's what I feel like sometimes in communities. Like you just see this tangled, especially Saginaw, this web of all of these different connections, and everybody knows everybody and is related somehow and worked for somebody as a kid. It's really the fascinating part of telling these stories.
Yeah, a lot of us around today have been here for a while and know each other. Have known each other for a while. So
you went to Arthur Hill. Then what?
I went to Delta College. Had a great experience there. They had a journalism professor there, Joan Ram, retired now, but was really instrumental in kind of growing my skill as a reporter. Was the editor there for a couple of years, and I went on to SVSU, Saginaw Valley State University. Very proud alumni of there. I went to become the editor of the student newspaper there. And then from there, I got a internship at the Saginaw News, and they hired me. 2004.
2004. I graduated high school in 2003. So look at you being a step ahead of me.
A little ahead of
you. When you joined the Saginaw News, what were you feeling? Were you intimidated? Were you like, unleash me onto the world of journalism? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, it was different because it was a mix of that, because I remember at SVSU there wasn't a journalism program, so there wasn't a whole lot of I didn't have a whole lot of peers there. And so being the editor, I was kind of at the top of the, at the top of the.
Yeah, you were the news guy.
Exactly. And so I had that kind of top dog mentality going into the Saginaw News. But then you go there and you see all these reporters who I've been reading their work since I was a kid. My parents subscribed to the Saginaw News, so I remember that print newspaper landing on my front porch for as long as I have been alive. And some names in there that really kind of shaped my views of what journalism is, what newspapers are. Now suddenly they're working with me, and that was very humbling. And so suddenly I went from being like the editor to being the new kid, the green kid on the block. And so I wouldn't say it was intimidating, because a lot of them were very gracious and welcoming and became my mentors early on. And so it was a great start, really. I loved working there right from the start.
You mentioned like your experiences really with those folks really shaped like what journalism is, what a newspaper is. Yeah. So I kind of want to ask you this, and maybe it's a hard question, maybe it's an awesome question. I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out.
What is journalism? Because like we live in a time, again, I come back to social media, where you pop open Facebook and everybody with a blue check is a journalist, and like what does it mean to be a journalist? What is journalism?
Journalism is diving into a rumor. If I had written that story that my grandma told me without checking with the principal first, that wouldn't have been journalism. That would have been maybe more akin to what some of the information you might get on social media now. Someone heard something and wasn't from a very reliable source, but it might be true. Kind of rings true, but
it's kind of unfounded gossip.
So journalism is the practice of diving into that, seeing if it's true, talking to the people who would know it's true, developing those sources over hopefully years, understanding the context, being able to relay that context through your work. It's giving truth or falsity to rumors a lot of times.
Yeah, you're just finding out the truth of things. It sounds like. I want you to talk about this too, because I think it would be important for folks to understand is like what all needs to happen before you hit publish, or even maybe even start writing a piece, because sometimes the impression is like journalists sit down and they start typing away on the computer, and then they send it out into the world, and then they just type the next thing, and then they send it out into the world. But to be a good journalist, what has to happen before you ever put your hands on a keyboard?
Well, you want to know the history of a thing. I mean, it really depends on. There's so many different stories I've written about. Some are as easy as that. You know, if you're writing about an event that's coming up, usually there's a poster that you recognize and see the hallmarks that, okay, that's coming from the Temple Theater. I know that's legit, so I can just write a story without talking to a person. But the harder stuff is when you have to interview somebody. When I have a story idea and I need to talk to hopefully people who have different perspectives, and like you had talked about earlier, you know, bringing together those equations that sometimes are floating out there, don't always come together. You want to bring them together into a cohesive story that is true.
Yeah.
Like that's the most important thing about journalism. The thing that keeps me up at night is, did I put the right date in this story? I will wake up in the middle of the night sometimes wondering, I said Friday. I know it's Friday, but is Friday January 20th or was it the 19th? Did I get that? I will sweat over that. And which is maybe not great for my health, but it's good for my journalism because I'm double and triple and quadruple checking information.
Bad for my mental health, great for journalism. So, well, I mean, that's also the thing that people are going to point out in the comments. Like, they won't read the actual story, but they'll be like, "Hey, Justin, Thursday is the 20th, not Wednesday."
Yep, exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
I do want to say, like, you do such a great job in your articles, in your pieces, and you do a great job because you do something that I think is so important to not just journalism, but to being informed about a community, in that when you write something, you give it context, you give it environment, you give it, like you said, the history of a thing is important. The facts of a thing is important. And it's really important for us when we become or are trying to be more connected, more informed in the community. That context means everything. I mean, like, I'll just use an example. In Fashion Square Mall just had a killer concert.
I saw photos of that. Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't want to say that concert single-handedly changed the trajectory of the Fashion Square Mall, but it might have. Like, we might be looking at that concert and say, like, that's when everything changed for that mall, because, like, just to see, and I don't know, is it hardcore, that kind of music? I'm sorry, guys.
It looked like it.
Like, if that's not the right terminology, I'm sorry. I am green. But people are having the time of their life. Like, dude scream, just screaming into that microphone. Like, people like wall of death and just like fake fighting. It was awesome. Like, just to see that happen in the Fashion Square Mall was awesome, even if you weren't there, even if that's not your kind of music. And then, like, there was a post made about how cops were called because there was a cutting, like someone was cut. And so all of a sudden it turns into this, like, outside social media narrative of, like, oh, like, there's violence happening, of course, like the association between Saginaw and violence, like, oh, like, of course it got out of hand. But, like, it turns out that, like, then there wasn't a cutting, and then somebody was cut, but it was an accident. Like, they had just accidentally cut their hand, and so it's not a big deal. And I use that not to throw anybody under the bus, but to just really highlight how important context is to the truth of things. Like, if you just look at that, you can walk away from that post saying, like, oh, Saginaw's being Saginaw, people getting out of hand again, when that is absolutely not the case. And I think the importance of journalism is that context, like digging into the truth of things, talking to all the people, making sure that things are fact-checked and that your bases are covered, and then presenting that in whole. So, like folks, if you're getting your local news, just by reading the headlines. Like, stop doing that, because that doesn't give you all the information. If you're getting your local news by primarily by folks who are not doing their due diligence, also stop. Like you owe it to yourself and to the community to know what the truth is, to have a fully formed opinion. And you can do that by pulling up the local news and taking 3 minutes to read it. Yeah. And you get all the history, you get the context, you get the nuance, you get what was actually happened or what was said. And I just sorry to be on the soapbox, but I think we owe it to ourselves and to this community to say, we got to take a step forward into the truth by reading, by getting all the facts, and then talking about what happened or did not happen. So sorry.
You're preaching to the choir there. I got 2 things to say about that. First of all,
join me on my soapbox, Justin.
Well, no, people who are trying to give information out, I admire that. I got one lesson that I learned early on is police scanner traffic is just like a first draft of what may or may not have happened at a place. So if you're going by police scanner traffic, you're going to come up with a lot of things that actually didn't happen. That just police have to check it out because someone said something, and you got to check it out, but hasn't been verified. So the journalism of that would be okay, I heard something on the police scanner that sounds serious. I need to look into it. I got to call or email or text the police chief or whoever the sergeant is who answers those sorts of questions. And then they verify or tell you we don't have any comments. So that's the extra step that a journalist needs to take to make sure that information is getting out there accurately. Because if you heard on the police scanner that there was a cutting at an event, and then you put that out there right away, that's not going to be good for.
You get one chance at a first impression, and that then becomes a narrative. So again, not gatekeeping anything, and I think the motivation to keep a community informed is an amazing one. It's an amazing one, especially given the technology. We have godlike powers that we can instantly connect people to information and people to each other. But that also comes, I think, with a responsibility to not just throw words out there and say I've done my due diligence as a journalist. If you don't do that due diligence, you're not a journalist, you're a disseminator of something that you heard. And so if you do want to call yourself a journalist, take that extra step, call that police chief, go there, verify the information and then send it out into the world. It's really easy to try to, and journalists are also guilty of this too. We all want to be the first person to break a story or to tell the story, to get the clicks and, get that kind of thrill of I beat everybody and I told that story first. And then you screw up and you feel stupid and you hurt somebody's reputation unnecessarily. And we can all do better.
No, I agree. And the other thing I want to say about that too is that it can be hard to disseminate between what is good, what's the right word I'm looking for here? Accurate, and what's not, what might be misinformation.
True.
There's a lot of clickbait out there that's not true, and I'm not going to. There have been and has been elected officials in our region who have seen things on social media and shared it as being true, like athletes who have in clickbait articles, but not in real life, have built homeless shelters in Saginaw. I've seen that. I've seen that on the social media feed shares from politicians, and I know that was just clickbait, but the person didn't recognize that. It's
AI generated. The graphic is AI generated. The news is It
looks real, but it's not. And I, would have to verify, and I have verified that. But
Draymond, have you built 5,000 homeless shelters in the city of Saginaw over the last week? Can you confirm or deny?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this clickbait will guilt trip him into doing that sort of thing. But
we would love those. Thank you, Draymond.
Yeah. But there's a lot of that going out there, especially with someone who's a public figure like Draymond. He makes the news a lot for a lot of different reasons, and so that's the other thing I would say is there's a news literacy that I think people could benefit from. That I think a lot of people are lacking, and it's not. It's hard in this day and age to disseminate sometimes.
Yep. Yeah. And it's becoming even more important. Like it was important pre-AI age.
Yeah.
But now, like you literally, and all it's going to take is another 6 months, another year, or whatever it is. And even those of us who can look at it and say, yeah, that's AI, like it's going to trick us.
Yeah.
And so even looking at the future of things, it's going to become even more important to take a deep breath, read it. And I think back to like grade school, like learning how to use the library. You know, you go into the library and you're sitting on the carpet squares and the librarian's like, how do you tell if a source is trustworthy or not? And they give you like this bullet list of like all the different things you have to think about when you read something. Like, well, can I trust this source? And like, can you find it in another place other than just this place? And that kind of like librarians will save the world is basically what I'm saying.
They're great people. We need more of them. Keep them around, please.
Yes, keep them around, please. What is it like? Why is local journalism important? Like and maybe we'll talk about this. Is kind of on the internets. There's this idea that local journalism is not important because I can get it from all of these other sources, and I've got a Facebook group with 60,000 members. Like, why do I need the local newspaper? Why is local journalism so important?
Well, we are trained in how to find the accurate information. We're paid to spend hours out of our day doing this. So while other people at work doing hard work, making their money, making their wages so they can pay their bills, that's how I make my wages. And I love doing it, but I'm spending my days doing that when sources are available to talk to me, that I can verify, information with them that, someone who's working a 9 to 5 wouldn't be able to call up. Well, maybe they could call some mayors during the daytime, but some officials are just not around at nights, and I don't know. I feel like it would just be more efficient if you were to rely on a local news outlet, whether it's MLive or ABC 12 or WSGW, TV5. We have a lot of really solid media organizations here in the region that's not the case everywhere. We're fortunate that we've got a pretty strong. I mean, we've taken the hits like every media outlet has over the last 15 years, but we have some really, really strong journalism happening here, and that's important because of what I just said. There's misinformation out there. It's easy to get something wrong if you don't have somebody who has the time, and that's their job, to find out what's going on and getting under the layers that sometimes are not so obvious on the surface of things.
Yeah. We do have great journalism going on. Yeah. And I just want to say that explicitly because the prevailing assumption, not just here locally, but everywhere, is that, we don't have great local journalists anymore. And the additive layer to that is the entire industry of news and journalism is undergoing just a tumultuous change. Like, it used to be like everybody bought their paper in the morning and you read it, and then you did the same thing the next day. And that's not the case as technology changes, as business models change, as all of these things change. But that doesn't change the fact that people who are paid to do this for a living locally here right now in the Great Lakes Bay region are good at what they do. Yep. And do we have a team of 40? We don't. Like, there isn't a newsroom of like 150 people all frantically typing on the typewriters and calling and hitting the streets. Yeah. But at the same time, like we have to give people the respect they deserve by saying, like, you guys are doing a good job at what you do.
Yeah. And I love my job, and I know a lot of people, a lot of my peers in this region feel the same way, that are doing what I do. You kind of have to. Here, the tendency, I think, for a lot of journalists after a certain amount of time is to they kind of get worn down and maybe want to look at other industries marketing. I actually left the journalism industry for 8 years. I was at the Saginaw News for 9 years, and then I went into marketing for 8 years, and it was a great experience. That was very enriching. It was nice to try out something that that was different than I had been doing since I was 15 years old, checking out my grandma's rumors. My calling, and I think the calling of a lot of journalists who have been around for a while, and that's a lot of them here in mid-Michigan and Saginaw, is that we're here because we love this job and believe in it. Like it pays the bills, but it keeps my heart pumping in a good way.
And those are the kinds of people that you want telling the news. Like you want people that are fiercely committed to this idea that journalism is important, that doing work is important, that calling 10 people about the thing to see what they have to say about it is important, or calling them again the next day and calling them again the next day. And like we were talking about your Beans Bunny story, like sometimes, or Zodiac even, like you're working on a story for months and months and months, or a year or years, because it's not ready yet. Like you don't know everything yet, and so you can't just throw it out into the world and guess and make up things or leave it incomplete. You got to keep gnawing away on that thing. And so I want to encourage people, like if you think that local journalism here is not good, please double check to make sure that you're reading the local journalism, because if you're forming your opinion based on the headline or whatever it is, or the narrative in the comment section, like what you're doing is not engaging in the local journalism, you're engaging in the comment section. So please, for the love of all that is holy, like take a second and read it. And then also just like support it, like pay the subscription, like $7 a month or whatever it is. Like when it just drives me, I'm going to get fired up and I'm going to go, like, it drives me bonkers to hear people say like local journalism is not good, but I will steal this locally written news article and post it because it's good enough to get me clicks, and then Facebook sends me a check at the end of the month because I took somebody else's work and I posted it publicly. Like, it is theft, it is stealing. Please don't do it. Support, if you want the local news to be better, that requires financial support, just like anything. And so we owe it to ourselves to pay the $7, pay the $10 to support the people whose living is local journalism. Like, we gotta do it. We can't speak out of both sides of our mouth. Fine, last soapbox. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Phil.
It just gets me worked up, and I know that you guys can't necessarily come out and say that because you know you're the ones getting paid. So I'm gonna say it. We have to support our local journalisms. They're doing a good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I like it when people share our stories, because it's getting the news out there. But yeah, there sometimes is an effect that when that happens, it doesn't help us financially, and that can be a problem. That has been the problem in media in general all over the world. There's been less financial support for it.
And we're kind of operating under the assumption because social media is free that news should be free. And that's never how it's worked. Like, you paid 5 cents for the newspaper. Like, the newspapers weren't given out for free. You paid 5 cents, 10 cents, $1, whatever it was, over time. There was always a financial transaction because that's what is required to keep it at a high quality. As soon as you start giving it out for free, like what is actually happening here? And so, like, the news is never good news. Good journalism has never been free. And so we have to acknowledge that we're not just owed news, because that doesn't work. Like, you're not volunteers. You don't run around volunteering your life to like live in poverty so that you can write news articles for folks. Like, we just got to do better.
I wish it were free.
Yeah, me too.
I wish it were. I wish
me
that
too.
were the system, but no, that's not. Unfortunately, it's not. So I know people have budgets, and so I don't want to get on people for I see a lot of times on social media when I share a story, people saying, "Well, there's a paywall. I'm not going to pay for this."
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, like they've got other priorities in life, and so I'm not going to get on them about that. But I'm hoping that they'll read enough headlines that get them enticed enough times where maybe that supporting that local media organization will gradually rise to in their priorities list.
Yeah.
And maybe one day they'll have room for it. I mean, that's kind of the hope, is that if we haven't won them over, that we will eventually.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. If you can't afford it, that's one thing. If you can, I'm just telling you, there's good stuff behind that paywall, man. There's good stuff behind that paywall. There's good people behind that paywall. There's good information behind that paywall. So if that's something that you value, like, do it.
Do it, and that will support more.
Yeah.
Like there will be more coming your way if that's it might feel like that subscription isn't a whole lot, but every subscriber counts. That's for print, online media, but for TV, every viewer counts. For radio, they've got their own metric. So however you can support whatever local media that you kind of latch onto, please do. However you can.
I'm curious to ask you this. How has your work as a journalist either changed your perception of this community or your understanding of this community, or even just like communities or the world at large, this act of talking to people and digging into truth and what is not and facts? Like, how has it changed your perception of this community or the world or people, or how has it changed you?
Well, so I was born and raised in the city of Saginaw, but outside of the city, outside Saginaw County, I didn't have as much experience with that in the world until I became a journalist. And so, if you run into a farmer in Franklin West is Bay County. I'm trying to think of a good rural Brant Township.
Mm-hmm.
He's very different than my neighbor in the city of Saginaw. But if you go interview him, you'll learn things about. This is still my neighbor. He might not be right next door to me, but he's in my county. We share the same state representative. We're voting for the same people. We have we have some of the same problems. Definitely some different ones too. Him being a farmer and me being a city boy. But you learn things about your people that you didn't grow up around. That's at least my experience, because I'm someone who was, like I said, born and raised in Saginaw and stayed here. I lived in the township for a little while, Saginaw Township, so I've got a little out of city experience. But yeah, I think that's probably the thing I've learned the most, is just going out into those rural communities in Saginaw County as a journalist, that I didn't necessarily get that perspective when I was in high school. I thought everything was like Saginaw, city of Saginaw.
It depends on who you talk to. Some folks would say that Saginaw is country.
yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, the experiencing of different perspectives, I think, has been the most beneficial thing for me, because like I don't know what it is to live that life or your life or anyone else's life. Yeah. And like, will I ever really understand what that means? I won't. But when you spend time with somebody and you ask them questions, it gets you close. It gets you as close as you can come. And I just feel like that's something, regardless of what's happening in the culture. I mean, like right now, things in the world are pretty intense. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to get too kumbaya with it, but like I just feel like that's that time spent with another person, not telling them things or assuming things, but just really asking a question and giving them space, I think is just something that we desperately need.
I agree. And a lot of good journalism is bringing that perspective to people who don't have it. Writing about what it's like to live in a different part of the county that has different different jobs and different ways of doing things. That's part of journalism, is to bring that to younger versions of you and me who are maybe more familiar with city life.
I sometimes describe the work I do as not being a storyteller, but being a story advocate.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you being in control of the story and it's you're spinning a yarn and like, look at my story, but like you're talking to all these people and you're essentially a caretaker of what they've told you. And so now, because you've been trained or you have experience in writing or the mechanics of telling that, like, now it's your job to advocate for that story, to present it as itself and not inject yourself into every little nook and cranny.
Absolutely. I'm a terrible fictional writer, by the way. When I was writing between assignments in the second grade, those weren't good stories at all.
Once upon a time, there's a boy named Justin.
It was just different variations of aliens and Jabba the Hutt stories, basically. So I'm glad I didn't go that route. It's much more interesting to write other people's stories that have nothing to do with me, other than they're happening in the community that I'm from and that I want to tell stories about.
Storytelling also, I think, is very much an important part of Saginaw culture. I mean, like, we are not obviously like the only ones doing it, and we are obviously not the first people to do it. I mean, it's just like a long lineage of people, great journalists, great storytellers, people who are not public but just are kind of, again, like caretakers of information, the stories. You think about like Julian Morris and Swag Magazine. I mean, like what other city in the state of Michigan had a kids, by kids for kids magazine at that level? I'm gonna skip ahead and tell you the answer. None of them. None of them. Like, Saginaw was the one that said like this place is worth it to have an actually printed magazine.
I remember, by the way.
Yeah. Please.
Not interrupting you there.
No, you can interrupt me.
I remember reading about Julian and reading about his publication.
Yeah.
When I was out of journalism, I was in marketing at the time, and I remember
that's right.
reading. And I remember reading about Kid Journalist. I think that was the nickname he had. He's grown up. He's a little older now, so maybe Kid Journalist is not his moniker.
Yeah,
anymore,
man journalist. He's
journalist.
at MSU now.
Yeah. But I remember reading his story and seeing him and thinking, wow, that's what I love right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the kind of, like, you need, when you're doing that at that young of age, you're a born storyteller. And I remember reading about him and thinking, man, I miss journalism. And that, I mean, a lot of things contributed to me coming back. But that was certainly one of them, seeing other journalists do stories. Like, whenever there would be a big story, I was out of it and not be able to report on it, I was like, oh, I want to be there right now.
Yeah.
I want to be there right now. Whenever I would go, like, I'd go on a first date with somebody and you're getting to know them and you're telling them what you're doing for a living, I would tell them, hey, I'm a marketing professional, and there's great stories there. But the stuff that I felt most passionate about, that most represented me, were the stories I had when I was at the Saginaw News a couple of years before then. That was kind of the key to me. Okay, maybe I should get back into that. Like,
yeah, the FOMO is strong, man.
Yeah, exactly.
When you see everybody like writing stories, or like somebody does beat you to a story, or like this morning there was it got rescheduled because of the cold, but at the Dow Event Center, the theater, I believe they're renaming the theater, like, I didn't hear about that. And I heard about it from somebody a day or two ago, and I just was like, why didn't I hear about that? Like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta be in the loop of that. And I think that kind of wanting to be a part of the experience of the story, and then like telling other people about it, I think is what makes a good journalist. Like it's the mechanics of it, and it's the kind of the technique of it and the experience, but really that curiosity, I think, is the thing. Like, I want to be in the loop. Like, I want to be the person that breaks it. So like, talking about Julian and talking about this, like, what makes a good journalist, like, what would you say to the 12-year-old who's like, I'm writing those stories, or I want to be the newspaper writer. I want to be Swag Magazine 2.0. Like, what would you say to them as they're thinking about their future in journalism or becoming a journalist in any kind of form, whether it's podcasting or writing or magazines or whatever it is?
What would I say to them? I mean, I hear a lot of people discouraging journalism because of the state of some of the organizations, cutbacks and whatnot. But man, if you love doing it and you know at that young of an age that's something that gets your heart pumping in a good way, you got to follow that, because that's something that's if that's a natural thing for you. You don't want to run away from that. I went into an industry that, like, again, I had a great experience in marketing, and it appealed to a lot of the things that I like to do. But journalism to me, storytelling to me, was something that was just, I don't know, it was in my bones, and that's not something that you should dismiss. Don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged.
I love that. Yeah, because I mean, the desire for information and to hear a story and to know a story and know what's going on and know the truth, like, that's never going to go away. The form of it's going to change as technology changes. Like I was talking to a young journalist, and he was talking about, like, wanting to go into college, like to major in journalism, and like, well, what else should I do? And I said, well, like, minor in business, because if you're not going to get hired by an outlet, like, you got to make your own, and that requires entrepreneurial knowledge. And so I really like that combination of, like, journalism, so you get the hard storytelling skills, but then you're also given the tool to say, like, I can make my own outlet. I can sell it. I understand the money mechanics behind how to do this in a different way, in a different form. Like, also interesting to see, like, print is starting to swing back into favor, similar like film photography. It was digital for decades. Like, look at this wondrous technology, and then the industry really rediscovers the magic of film and physical things, and so that's kind of an interesting pendulum swing back. Like, it may not be the 30-page newspaper anymore, but what is that form? So don't be discouraged. I love that. I've
had to recently start doing on-scene videos.
Oh yeah,
of myself.
I do see your face on my newsfeed more often now, Justin.
That's not why I got into journalism. That's TV
You're
journalism.
You're such a
right
handsome
there.
guy, though. I love to see your gray beard. Just fun, like, oh, there's Justin on the scene.
Yeah, that's not why I got into journalism. But it is. I mean, it's. I don't know. It's enriching to do something new in the field that I love, and so if I have to do something that's a little out of my comfort zone, like being on a video, talking on a podcast, I'm feeling fine right now. I don't know. It's my first time doing it.
You're crushing it, bro.
Are people normally nervous, or?
It depends.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of depends. Every once in a while.
I had a bunch of goldfish crackers and cherry Coke before I came here.
The goldfish crackers is like your comfort food.
That's my journalism. It's my journalism fuel right there.
Goldfish. Well, Justin Engel, I want to say that, thanks for joining me on this conversation. I'm so glad that this was our first podcast, your first podcast. They're very cool, but also, like, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of the folks that you work with for the work that you are doing in giving us context, in doing your diligence and telling us the story, and really connecting us to ourselves in a very important way. And it takes a huge amount of work, a huge amount of time, a huge amount of experience and talent, and I don't think that you guys get the thanks that you should. So I want to give you the thanks that you should. And I know I speak for a lot of folks too. Thank you for the work that you're doing here in Saginaw and the region. And thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my readers are the reason why I do it. I love doing it. I don't see an end I'll probably die doing this job, and hopefully a
Yes.
long time from
Yeah,
now.
more stories to tell.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
That was great.
You're great. That was great. That was great.